other stuff going yet?
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to JAWS Mental Health Awareness. Welcome to our YouTube viewing and listening. Please subscribe. Get on over. Welcome to JAWS Coffee Chat series, and we are at JAWS Mental Health Awareness. Emily, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a good Monday. Today is March 27th, 2023. It's right now about 2:30 Central Time, which is when we go live on Mondays for the JAWS Mental Health Awareness. And today on this episode, some of you may remember that last week I talked about the issue with being able to get help because of insurance related stuff. And today I want to talk about, yes, let's continue to get together and email us at jawscoffeechat@gmail if you want to be part of this movement to push that we can all get health insurance, whether we have pre-existing conditions or not, which right now, those of us who need it the most for our mental health, or interestingly enough, what I found is what portrays itself as mental health is, in my case, neurological. And I'll tell you more about that. But whichever direction our conditions come from, or even it's the heart or whatever, that we all are considered to have pre-existing conditions, and thus we are the ones that are uninsurable, but really the ones that need it the most, because in some cases it's our livelihood and it's a life or death situation, as a story I told you last week about someone I met at the gym, and her dad passing away because he couldn't get medication for his heart. So, as some of you know, I've talked about different things related to even womanhood playing part into what we think is mental health because of menopause, or different issues related to our cycles being off balance. Like before I had a surgery, mine was my cycle was for 20 days a month, and it was excessively heavy, so I could never really keep clean pants on. I always had to have different clothes with me to be constantly changing, and things like that actually have been connected to what we think is mental health, because then again, those hormones being that far off balance causes, at least in women with cases like mine, to have medical stuff, like how it caused me to have anemia and other medical conditions. And then it also caused my mental health to be really far extreme, irritable, agitated, and like I would yell at people. I was very short-tempered and other things like that. That's not who I am by nature, but it's what I can come across as, or at least I did before I had that surgery. And they found that it all was within my reproductive system being unbalanced in some way, or not functioning correctly in some way or another. And so that's where sometimes we have, in that case, a female area related medical condition that can show up as being mental health, with mental health conditions being the symptoms, but not the actual condition. And I didn't really look into all that until I had failed every medication on the market for mood stabilizing, what they categorize as mood stabilizers. Later, I go to find out 2 days ago, today's March 27th, on March 24th, 2023, I was rushed to the emergency room again for what was believed to be my sodium. And some of y'all may remember I've talked about earlier this year in 2023, that I've been to the emergency room twice in a 6-week period for my sodium level bottoming out or dropping rapidly fast to where I could possibly go to coma. Sometimes, in both of those times, I was told that I had 4 hours left, or they'd send an ambulance to get me at the coffee shop or the gym or wherever else I was hanging out at the time that the emergency happened or occurred. Similar happened in November of 22. However, what I did not find out, but that somehow the hospital knew back in November of 22, is that on Friday, March 24th, 2023, I was rushed to the emergency room for my sodium dropping rapidly. And I didn't understand why, but they insisted on doing a brain CT scan, scanning all of my head, like my skull and my teeth, everything in the head, my brain, all of it. The whole look at my entire head in the internal sense. And they asked me if I had any seizures. So I told them how I had that one in September of 22, when we believed that I had overcome epilepsy as a result of my lobectomy brain surgery in December of 2020. But yet I had that really bad one that, quote, proved I still had epilepsy. Well, then it goes to turn out, I find out Friday on March 24th that actually I have a cyst in my brain. It's growing on the only part of my left temporal lobe that I still have since brain surgery. And guess what? It causes seizures. That's one of the signs that it's there, just like with epilepsy. So we go to uncover. Do I have epilepsy or do I not? Well, the potential is I overcame epilepsy, but we found that I had 2 causes of it in the whole time, with another one being a cyst that we never knew about until 3 days ago. Go on to find out, while we're waiting for the doctors to tell us what to do, that some of the symptoms, just like with our cycles being heavy or otherwise unhealthy and not regular, is that in some people, and in the cases of women, especially more than men, or maybe in different ways, it causes the mood to be off balance. So we can appear to be having mood swings, when we actually then again have something medical, neurological, meaning something physical with the brain that's abnormal, in this case, a growth of a cyst on my brain. And I go to research it, finding out that this cyst, if it's not treated immediately, which mine did end up being larger on Friday than what it was measured in size and in area in November, that was 4 months prior. So it's grown in size, but we didn't find out till Friday. And I go to find out it also causes the areas of the brain that's attached with or to basically be eaten up, torn apart, then sent through the digestive system to exit the body, and it's permanently lost. So I got to find out I am literally losing my mind. But in this case, it's a physical, in the neurological sense, cyst eating up bits of my brain that I will never have again. So, point being, some people may be like me, where we have what we think is mental illnesses. And there's a possibility that both sides could be true, that you could both have something physical going on in your brain, like in my case, or in some cases like autism. But at the same time, you can show as having mental illnesses with different unstable moods, whether it's depression, anxiety, fight and flight from PTSD, agitation, irritability, anger, rage from, say, mania, that's like bipolar mania. There's all kinds of ways we can appear. Like even when my sodium drops, I actually hallucinate. But in terms of psychiatry, I have no history of hallucinations. When my sodium drops, meaning the salt level of my body, I will start to see stuff. And that's kind of one of the signs I know I need to call the doctor. And the doctor often tells me to get to the ER, which I use Uber to get to, that's much more affordable than the ambulance, but they give me a time frame. I have to be there within so many hours of the phone call based on how bad I sound via the phone call. Do I have confusion yet, or so forth? But interesting enough, there's so much medical that can be all kinds of different physical issues in the body or the brain, whether it's like my prior history a year ago, where it was related to my female cycle and my reproduction system being off balance with different hormones, to now this, where there's something physically growing on my brain. But in all of this, I've been seen, like perceived, as struggling with my mood or struggling with, quote, mental health. So how true is it in your case? If you're not sure if you could have something physical going on, make sure you regularly see your primary care physician. Or if you don't have one, you see one. Look it up with different providers in your insurance or in the Affordable Care Act plan, if that's where you get your coverage, or if it's through your employer or your a family member's employer, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever you use as your assistance to pay for medical costs. Search the providers. If you don't know where to find providers, call the phone number on the back of your card and find out where there are some providers that are within, say, 5 or 10 miles area around where you live, that's at least semi-local. And you can see, starting with a primary care physician, and ask that primary care physician to do an exam, maybe a physical or a wellness exam or both. And then ask that doctor about any struggles you have going on related to your mood. And he or she are most likely going to ask you, what are the different symptoms you're experiencing? So tell them about different things related to your mood. If you discuss it in there with the doctor, it doesn't leave the doctor's office. There's no one there to hear it unless you brought someone in the back with you, like a family member or a friend. But even then, if you don't want to discuss it in front of that family member or friend, ask them if they can wait in the waiting room. But either way, whatever you need to do, be sure to share with that doctor all the stuff that goes on, including what's in your mind, of what you perceive, what you think, thoughts you process, whether it's stuff like, I want to die, or I want to kill myself, or it's thoughts like, I want to hurt somebody, or I'm angry at somebody, or I just want to punch them to death. Whatever are these thoughts, share it with that general practitioner, that PCP. And he or she will most likely send you to some kind of specialist. They'll probably ask you if you have a psychiatrist, but if you have other medical history, like myself, with stuff that physically goes on in the brain, ask them if you can see a neurologist. And then explain to them that the reason is because you want to find out if any of your experiences, these moods that are unstable, could possibly be linked to something neurological that is something physical happening in the brain. For example, I found out through research and also through a best friend of mine that's a medical doctor that actually those that have autism have a very bumpy brain. It's not the usual oval shape. It's very bumpy and rigid on the edges all around. So it's not even an oval. It's some kind of clumpy shape. And that's because, according to him, in the physical side of the brain, those with autism, whether they're high or low function, physically are missing parts of the brain. And that's why we function different. That's why there are things we do and don't do that are different from normal people. It's something actually physical with our brain. But a lot of people perceive it as being an attitude or a mental illness. And so often we end up on some kind of mental health medication, which can help with us balancing our mood. But then again, it's coming at a different angle and it's treating the symptoms, but not the actual condition. And in terms of the physical condition of autism, it has not yet been discovered how we can develop those parts of our brain that we do not have. So hopefully in the near future, that'll be figured out, if it's even possible in the world, within the human power and science, medical, so forth. But definitely technology could possibly be an assistant in making up stuff like that if we can make something that can basically mimic and reproduce things that are similar in the molecules to, say, a reading of the molecules in a certain type scan that you put into the artificial intelligence device or whatever that does the reproduction. And it knows what molecules and what pattern of atoms and what kind of atoms to repeat on what basis. But that's kind of far away in the future, even though right now in 2023, the future of that kind of stuff may not be very far, since we already have AI systems or artificial intelligence, and even talks about Tesla having a artificial intelligence in a self-drive car and other things that are independent without the need of any human, to a point that Tesla is holding on to this. They say the world's not ready for it. People aren't ready for it. But somehow it's already discovered and known by somebody in Tesla. And there's other things like that happening. So it may be closer in the more near future than we can imagine based on things like this. However, going back to what we can do now, we can see someone that's a neurologist or deals with the physical aspects of the brain and ask that neurologist to do different kinds of exams, from a MRI to an EEG to a CT scan, a PET scan, an IMAP scan, and so many other things. That's where they can actually get physical images of your brain. And even know, like in my case with the IMAP and the PET scan, they were able to know by a color scheme and definition key, where different colors had different levels of activity definitions, that before my brain surgery, those certain parts of my brain they removed were blue, meaning they were dead. There's no activity to even know that it was alive. So they knew by removing that section of my brain that I no longer have now, that I would not lose, quote, any brain activities. Meaning all this thinking, all this production, the books I write, the conversations I have on here, my simple ability to communicate, to look at you and do everything else in life that's functioning, not just work, that the rest of my brain that showed up as still being active and having activity was all I needed. All that was dead is gone. But here I am. No one can even tell that I only have a portion of my brain because the part they took showed as not having any activity that said to the neurosurgeon it wasn't even at any use beyond giving me epilepsy. And then again, that's looking at a neurological way. But then we know how it actually ended up balancing my mental health to be a lot more stable than I was when I had epilepsy. Because there was a lot of chaos. That's what the EEG showed. That certain part that was dead somehow had a lot of chaos without being, quote, active. I don't know how that's scientifically possible. Only a doctor could tell you that. However, this is all to say that many of us who may seem to be mentally ill and have mental health conditions may actually have, whether it's additionally or independently, neurological conditions that are things physically going on in our brain that cause it to be abnormal, where the mood being unstable in some way or another, or the emotions unstable in some way or another, could be a symptom of something medical as opposed to being the actual condition in itself. Emily or Kurt, y'all have anything to add?
Mental health is an important topic.
Kurt, are you with us?
Mental health is a very important topic.
Oh, what? Oh, it is. But this was just such an interesting discovery to realize that I had something else physical going on, even though, like, you know how in the last so many weeks I've been a bit irritable or moody or whatever you want to call it. But still, it's something that would be perceived as a mental illness for me to, shockingly enough, find that it's something physical. Isn't that pretty interesting? Because you have ever imagined finding out that kind of thing? Like, you're in the ER for something independent. Here I was on my sodium, and I find out my mood off is something in my brain. Like, have you ever had any kind of shock like that before?
Not sure.
I guess you don't go to a doctor a lot, huh?
No, I don't. Try to stay away from the doctor.
Oh.
But I try to stay as healthy as possible so I don't have to go to the doctor as much.
Yeah, but interesting enough, I was talking to the nurse practitioner at my brain surgeon's office, and she said for cases like mine that end up so severe that they're considered one of the worst 30 cases in the country of at least one condition, they practically live in a doctor's office and hospital. You know how I'm always talking about I got this and that doctor's visit or therapy or surgery, and I even now have 2 more surgeries I have to have, and it's still the first quarter of 2023. So I have to have what's my 4th brain surgery, my 2nd female surgery, and I already had in January that surgery, the VNS surgery. That was the 7th time that one's been done. But Jessica told me, and she's the one that works for my brain surgeon. She said the cases that end up in the medical center that are the worst, or that have for at least one reason or another, as far as medically speaking, been defined as one of the worst 30 cases in the country, it's very normal for them to spend and practically live, metaphorically speaking, not literally, in a doctor's office or hospital. And I'm like, oh, that sure gives me hope. Because I know that I was one of those as of the year 2019. So I'm like, so I'll never get past this point of always having to, every week see at least one doctor, if not 2. She's like, well, it's just normal. She's like, if you wouldn't be in our care if it wasn't part of your case too. Are you with us, Kurt?
I am with yes.
What do you guys say to what I've been talking about?
So how can I help?
What?
Well, I know we have friends that tell us. What's that?
You said, so how can I help? And I was like,
What are you laughing at?
Like, you. Because I said, Kurt, do you have anything to
right,
add?
so-
You said, so how can I help?
Yes. So the idea is that we have some friends that tell us about, like this is mental health awareness, and they encourage us to think of it as that really at the root of it is brain health. So in terms of the anatomical structure of the brain, so that's what you're talking about, and kind of what you're going through and the effect it's having on you with all of the medical intervention for your brain. So the idea is the physical side of this, physical health, is important. Circulation matters, in terms of how your breathing is, and whether you're getting good exercise can make a difference. All of these things make a difference. And like you do your Jaws diet show, so diet and exercise and hydration. So kind of how you're feeling, and getting that glass of water. Earlier, we were on with a well-being chapter meeting with Helpopedia, and we started our meeting with tapping and meditation and just getting grounded before we entered into the meeting. So there's all sorts of that stuff where, like the breathing you do, the idea is it brings in that oxygen, and when you breathe out, it takes out that carbon dioxide, which can work against how you feel, and ultimately the oxygen saturation of the blood that your brain is working off of. And like with all of your organs and with all of the hormonal releases, all the secretions, all this stuff that affects us. We've got a friend who has the You Are Happy show, and so in terms of products, we know that there are products which help the serotonin and the adrenaline and the endorphins. All this stuff matters, and it all interacts with the brain. And so when you're going through these things in
Yeah,
your
we
body,
should have that friend on here one day to explain it.
exactly. So Emily, are you gonna take care of that? Are you gonna have her people talk to your people?
Yeah,
Are we gonna do business, Emily?
I know Melanie has a lot going on right now, so I'm not sure when it will be, but I will ask her.
Yeah, let's definitely, when the show's over, Kurt, let's visit about who this person is and possibly having them on the show to explain the more scientific, because that kind of, like what you're saying, it goes with the idea of taking care of the brain, and for the mental well-being, we need to also
Jen,
look
you've
out for
met
the
this
physical
person.
well-being.
She's been on before.
And I don't remember. I met so many people. But anyway, so that would be a great idea to, in this case, I guess, have her on again. But specifically on the mental health awareness, so she can talk about even possibly her supplements that could help with the brain functioning, like you were saying. And then maybe we can share her website for those that want more information. But definitely, I follow everything you're saying, Kurt. And that's very true. And it especially goes with where I was saying that mine was something physical with my health. And the interesting part is when I had this emergency and all this finding on Friday night, 3 days ago, my mom looked up what were the causes of this, like possible causes based on research known as different things that can cause a cyst to grow in the brain. And one thing it gave was a lack of oxygen. So my mom started to think about that 8-minute long seizure I had in September of 22, the only one I've had since brain surgery. That was when they tried to wean me off seizure medicine. And going 8 minutes, and some portion of that, it got bad enough I was not breathing. So mom wondered if that few minutes got my brain so short of oxygen that that's what caused the cyst in my brain that I'm dealing with now. As we're talking about here, it was showing in November of 22, and the seizure was in September of 22. But none of my scans of the PET scans, CT scans, nothing like that before then ever showed this cyst in my brain. So we knew it had to be in the relatively recent history, but we don't know how far back it goes. But do you see what I mean? Where that correlates with making sure the brain gets oxygen in that case, right? And so your breathing exercise to help feed the brain with healthy, at least in this case, oxygen, right?
Yeah, again, I served in pre-hospital care, an EMT, EMS, emergency medical system, running ambulance and, being able to administer medication and, so the crux of what we look at when we're assessing a patient is we consider perfusion, they call it. So really, that word is just exactly what you're talking about, the exchange of oxygen, and the idea is how is it getting to the tissues and the cells and, everything that way. So again, the real importance here is also that the release of carbon dioxide is very important. So like you can get, you can get like too much, oxygen, like you can hyperventilate, and when you hyperventilate, that's basically
that comes a lot with anxiety and different phobias or paranoia. When the episodes are acting up.
Yeah, exactly. So I also am set up with, biomedical equipment that is designed with perfusion in mind, with the, with the micro vessels, like in anatomy, we learn about capillaries and stuff like that. But, if we think of all those micro vessels, it's very significant how much of that, is in us. Until you start looking at it and studying it, it's really profound how much we are, embodying, micro vessels. And so again, the idea is that this is the body's deployment system of oxygen to the cell and pulling that carbon dioxide out. So the other part to realize as people is we are creatures of energy. Yes. So the idea is that, as we take on this show, people are experiencing your energy, Jennifer. People are experiencing my energy.
No, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so when Emily talks, we're experiencing Emily's energy, and then I speak to it and I say, OMG, EMG, because EMG is Emily's initials. Again, the energy thing. So if you think of matter, we matter because we are matter. We do have the neutrons.
That's corny but interesting.
Hey, if you want corny, I can go all day. See, now that's energy right there.
Right.
So So again, we got protons and neutrons, and then we got those electrons. You know, when you study in science, physical science, you learn that that electron is orbiting, you know, the proton and neutron. And so
The
this is
nucleus,
very
yeah.
so this is very important to understand, like with cells, the mitochondria of the cell and the makeup of cells, and then the tissue, and then the systems and everything. How everything works together is very important. And the brain, you know, is a vital organ. You know, so the idea is that how we are fueling our brain, you know, matters. So, like with all of the interventions you had, Jen, is that it matters what you're doing throughout your day, through this show, on and on and on, because, you know, how you are deploying nutrients, like to the point of the diet, the activity you get, the right amount of activity, because you can go to exhaustion, and then that's taxing on the brain the other way. So
Well,
that
and then
becomes
the exhaustion, that's interesting because you know how, like, this morning on Joel's Diet, we were talking about exercise, remember? And even different ways to stay in shape with different resources like magazines and free videos on, say, YouTube and so forth, based on what somebody's budget and income, you know? So if they couldn't afford a gym membership, there was all these other ways we came up with of how to find resources to do different workouts and stay fit or get fit. But interesting enough, there's the other extreme that so physical exercise helps create happy molecules, which is the serotonin and dopamine, natural chemicals our brain creates as a result of physical activity. The insertion in the, like, being, you know, running or something, or assertive walking as opposed to just casual dragging along, right? But there's also the extreme opposite that when we don't do it, we can go longer periods of not being active. Like last week when I felt like I was getting, when I thought I was getting, you know, I was getting irritable and stuff like that, is the way other people saw it. And then after so long of that, then on Saturday, both of my sisters said, "Hey, do y'all think Jen is depressed? I mean, she's not being herself." Because I was just kind of staying quiet to myself. And you know, I'm an extrovert, so not talking isn't me. But they talked about how here I was really quiet to myself. I wasn't interacting with anybody. I wasn't even really doing anything besides playing on my phone and reading magazines and all this stuff that's like kind of like isolation in a crowd. You know what I mean? I was in the crowd of my whole family, that there was something like 12 of us. And even though I'm part of that group, and we're in a loud environment of all this music and commotion, rides like roller coasters, all this stuff going around, and I'm just staying secluded to myself with no interaction with anybody else. So I was lost in a crowd kind of idea, right? I was isolated in a crowd, however that sounds. But they go to tell me that both of my sisters, because they know me, and my older sister is a physical therapist, so she works with the acute care, which are the ones that have to do with like head injuries and other things related to the brain and head that cause them to not be able to walk. So she has to reteach them how to do basic physical activities like walking and running. And then other things that relate to my little sister's bachelor's degree in human nutrition and sports management. And their two heads here, health related and brain related, come together to say they thought I was depressed. Well, interesting enough, I was getting brain fog and all this other stuff that made me just not feel like I even could go to the gym. And Friday, I tried to go in, but I got irritable and in some arguments with people, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So, you know, there's all these things that make us feel when we're in these mental health episodes like we can't do what is really good for us. Lack of energy, or inability to get along with others, or seclusion and isolation, So we go funneling downward, but it takes us away and makes us not want to do one of the many things that works for us. See what I mean? So in the end, I pushed myself and I said, you know what, Sunday I'm going to go to that cycle class at this new cycle bar. It's like a gym, but it's called Cycle Bar because all it is all kinds of different workouts on bicycles that's in a like gym setting, and they have all this upbeat music and rap and all kinds of other stuff to kind of energize and get you going. Well, I went to that one. I pushed myself and I said, I'm going to do this cycle class tomorrow, even if this is the only one I do for the week. You know what? I got this whole week mapped out now to spend each morning, except for one where I'm in the medical center because of my brain surgeon and stuff like this I have to work with. But if I'm not in the medical center and I'm right here in Katy, all those mornings I'm going to the gym, I'm doing some kind of workout, even if it's by myself, like swimming 20 laps in the lap pool. But all it took was that one time of pushing myself to say, I will go this one time. But then there's how funneled downward that I felt less and less like going because I was going longer and longer without going. You see what I mean?
Exactly. One thing I'm wondering is, do you think it would benefit the show if you were at the BizNet Sparks event last week? And I know we're not in a place where I can do what I did last Thursday, but if you wanted to showcase some of the activities that I had, basically some of the stuff in there I call therapeutic activities, and so it is a little bit of a illustration of pursuing mental health. I don't know if you agree. You saw my presentation. Does it seem like it would benefit your show?
Oh yeah, the Disability Channel one that you presented.
Yeah.
I don't know we have time in this episode, but can we schedule that?
Well,
Maybe give the spill for listeners to know what to expect next week on the mental health awareness.
Well, do we have 2 minutes or no?
Oh, it's only 2 minutes? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, if you just go through the visuals, it goes really quick. So yeah, I'll just kind of give, and
Yeah,
then
just not
we can
not too
revisit
fast
it.
for people to read it.
So here we go. So we're seeing me. Actually, yep, there it is. All right, so we're seeing me there at a ski show. I entertain. I'm on a mission for inclusion. This is what you're saying. This is a Disability Channel presentation. Here's me doing a little bit of like what you do here, putting on a show. We take on ambassadors to advocate for the stuff like we talk about in this show. There's a technology side of it, and our World of Ability Podcast Network, some advocacy. You're seeing some basketball and inclusive sports, wheelchair basketball and inclusive sports. We got an award for what we're doing here, some more show stuff, which is what you're doing here at Jaws Coffee Chat series. This is a sports and rec expo, which has 60 partners and over 50 modes of activities. Like I say, therapeutic activities. And here's some more show business stuff. Our shakedown, where we do 12 Central every day, 15 minutes of music and motion. We have our action track chair, our rock climbing, water skiing. You're seeing again. You're seeing an article was done on my family and I for all of this. Some more water skiing. Adaptive Adventures is out there for people with physical disabilities. And then I took a page out of it that is for veterans, injured, wounded veterans, benefiting from a program like this. And here's Harold Hack. We call him Hackster. He's on his seated wakeboard. Our Happy Neighborhood Project, of course. We're Tuesdays at 1 Central. Emily and I are co-hosting for Happy Business Networking. Save the date for October 6th, Global Happiness Summit. And there we are. And I'm around telling business people, make your business for everybody and improve your bottom line. So mental health and mental wellness, brain health, all of that, a lot to be said for the benefit of professional development to help professionals be better with teams and workplace and with customers. And, just like with the Happy Neighborhood Project, spreading happiness around the world and being the happiest place in the world for business people. See, that's speaking to making it great for a mental health experience while you're doing your work. What a concept. You know, you can do whistle while you work. You know, what is that?
Good one.
So
where would you tell people to find out more information about this if they want to learn more about these activities, and possibly that being maybe some of our listeners' starting point to get activities involved? Like, do they need to be in Wisconsin? Like, what are all the details?
No, this is a global phenomenon that a lot more is going on. I'm involved in water skiing, the International Water Ski and Wake Sports Federation. And so it's a global commitment to have, you know, everybody skis, you know, type of thing. So inclusive adaptive water skiing around the world. You know, so all sports, you know, are like that. You know, when people are on, you know, for basketball, like the wheelchair sports, you know, the Paralympics, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, and for this show, you know, with able-bodied stuff, I mean, it's just traveling. I mean, it's just speaks to all the fun stuff in life, you know, sports, recreation, hobbies, pastime, leisure activities, travel, entertainment, the arts, performing arts, you know, all that stuff where you really feel like you're enjoying yourself, you know, where you can have that response and it makes you smile.
Enjoy life.
Yeah, that's right. Enjoy life, you know, going out to the island and, you know, having your favorite beverage and stuff like that.
So basically, these are activities you're advising them to look in their local neighborhood about, right? Like how I went to my Lifetime gym, or others might go to the YMCA, or there may be others that are community swimming teams and all these other kind of in their local area that's independent to each listener based on where they're located. There are different resources they can look up at some kind of different organization that's local to them.
Exactly. So just real quick, I think with one of our platforms, we try to wrap up in a couple minutes from now, don't we? Am I running you long?
Yes, I was just trying to finalize with the closing, and I wanted to let listeners know basically what I just said, because there wasn't clarity. I didn't think that listeners would know where they could reach these resources versus what I said about looking in their local community at churches or community groups like swimming teams, softball teams, some other stuff like that. That's different activities local to each individual, because we know our listeners are all over the globe.
Yes, so basically if they just contact us through Jaws Coffee Chat to get to me, or otherwise call and text 262-372-1754 or Kurt, K-U-R-T, at projectdiehard.org. I mean, I can help people directly.
And that Jaws Coffee Chat email is Jaws, J-A-W-S, coffeechat@gmail.com. And that's the one Kurt's talking about. Back to you, Emily.
Anybody have any announcements?
Kurt, do you or Emily?
I already made my announcement. Save the date, October 6th, Global Happiness Summit. Keep in touch with us for more info.
Alrighty then. And should they also email jawscoffeechat@gmail.com for that too? Or where should they email about that?
Either way, Jaws Coffee Chat email or mine, Kurt at projectdiehard.org. Either way, we're all here to help.
Alrighty then. And then I wanted to let everybody know, for all the listeners, one thing, thank you for watching, even if it's at a later time and it's not while we're actively online. And please be sure to subscribe, share, comment, let us know what you think. Add in any opinions or topics to what we're talking about that's on your mind. If you want to learn more about Jaws Coffee Chat podcast, go to our website, Books and More by JenniferAWhitaker.com. That's the word books, and more by JenniferAWhitaker.com. WHIT as in Tom, AKER.com. That's our website where you can find the podcast as well as books and other stuff we have to offer. You can even find information about different shows that are others besides this mental health awareness that we offer, and some different events we have going on and so forth. We are, for those of you who are on, who may be looking for work or are just trying to network, we are looking for a public relations press release person to help get our name known and help us grow. And if that is you, this is not a social media candidate right now. We've got that, but now we need a press release person. However, you will still go to the same place, which is calendly.com/JENNS Books and More. That's CALENDLY.com/JENNS Books and More. And that's where you can schedule with myself as well as a team member or two that will also be there to help consider and get to know you. If you think you have the skills and you want to be a part of our team to get a share of the profits, as we all get a profit share, please be sure to schedule with us. And finally, to all listeners, here you are, Jaws Coffee Chat. Whatever's your favorite podcast, be sure to look us up, subscribe, and we thank you for watching, following, even if you only saw part of it, and wish you a happy and productive week.